Hey guys, this is kind of a long overdue video slash audio thing where I'm basically just going to be talking about a lot of stuff that's gone on recently, especially related to our political content. In this video, or audio thing I should say, I'm going to be talking about the Twitter related stuff, my stance on deplatforming, and then kind of our past and future political content and the direction that I want to take my stream slash YouTube related to all of that. The first thing that I want to talk about, and I've mentioned this a lot in the past, it has to do with my reason for why I do the debate thing, why I ever started, why I've carried on with it for so long. I've stated this a few times, but I just want to have it very clearly stated right here at the beginning. My goal with debates has to do with helping people to form logical arguments. And when I say logical arguments, there are two parts to that. I want people's arguments to be sound. That means that the premises are based in reality. You have some very real empirical backing to whatever your premise is. And then I want the arguments to be valid. That means that when all of your premises are taken together, the conclusion logically follows. This has been my only goal with my debates. Some people seem to think that I have a political agenda. I don't, and we'll talk more about that later. I believe that's pretty easily evidenced by my rhetoric. And some people think that it's an ego thing, and it partially is. I enjoy being correct in conversations. Some people think that I'm trying to drive more people towards different types of policy positions, or to the Democrat Party, or to be SJWs, or to virtue signal or anything. I don't know. There's a lot of different claims that are made for why I do what I do. But my whole guiding principle is generally that thing that I just mentioned, that I want people to form valid and sound arguments. That's always been the central guiding principle to everything that I do. So in looking at that, I have to ask, over the past, I guess we'll say 2 years of political content, have we achieved this goal in any measurable way? Personally, I think I have. Now, I'm a little bit biased when it comes to that, but I'm only going by the large number of emails that I've gotten from people that say that, they were drifting in one direction. They were falling down the hole of the anti-SJW YouTubers, that they were heading down this path of constantly listening to Sargon of Akkad and then more extremist people, and they listen to some of my videos, and they don't necessarily agree with everything I say, but they can at least respect what I'm saying, and they can at least respect my thought process, which is the most important part to me. And it seems like in reading through a lot of that, and I've gotten hundreds of emails and seen hundreds of posts, well, not hundreds of posts, but I've seen dozens of posts across my subreddit. Oh no, hundreds of posts if you include stuff on YouTube and whatnot. Like, I've seen a lot of people that were brought over on the fence. I consider this to be my major success. And I've kind of spoken about this in the past, where I say I live by I call it the 40-40-20 rule. Or maybe I should call it the 40-20-40 rule. But basically, in any given conversation, 40% of both sides are super invested in their position, such that if I debate Sargon, 40% of the people listening will always say I won, 40% will always say Sargon won. But I'm always gunning for the 20% in the middle, the people on the fence that are listening for, I guess, the most reasonable thought process. I think I'm giving too much credit to people there, but that's... Man, my views on people have become so cynical over the past couple of years. I don't know if it's healthy or not, but that's my hope, right? Is that there are these 20% who are not super invested in either position, that can listen to the positions of me, the person I'm debating, and then hopefully see that, okay, well, Steven's arguments are more reasonable. It seems like he's willing to, root his arguments in empirical data. His thought process makes sense, and I might not even necessarily agree with what he's saying, but at least it seems like he's got a good comprehensive view, all the way from the empirical data, all the way up to the philosophical assertions, that everything seems to be pretty well put together, and I can respect that, That's my hope. And I think I've done an okay job at doing that. Now, with that being said, there are more effective ways to do these debates depending upon what my goal is. And I'm going to speak a little bit to the idea that I have some political agenda, and I really don't. And the reason why I guess the reason why people think this is because they disagree with me politically. I can't think of another reason to do it. But basically, one of the big things that I've discovered in the course of doing all these debates is that nobody really cares, at least on the right. And I say that, but it's true of the left sometimes as well. But right now, especially of the right, nobody really cares about fact-based arguments. Nobody really cares about valid or soundness in an argument. Nobody cares about empirical data. It really all comes down to what type of narrative or what type of emotional response can you get out of somebody, right? What type of narrative can you root an argument in? What type of emotional response can you get out of somebody? You know, if I sit here and I tell you a million reasons why immigration is good for the United States, somebody like Fuentes, or somebody, white nationalist Fuentes, or somebody like James Alsop only has to respond with, well, look at these two stories where an illegal immigrant murdered somebody, and your entire argument is destroyed insofar as they and their fans and a lot of people in the middle are concerned. A lot of it just comes down to pushing a narrative. And this is honestly the best way to sell a political message, right? If you want to bring people over to your side politically, you can do it by selling a political narrative, such that whatever message you're trying to sell to somebody is rooted in that story, you know? Immigration is really bad. Well, why is immigration bad? Well, I know a guy, Uncle Joe the plumber, right? When we were talking about taxes in 2008 with Obama, right? But like, I know a guy, Joe, who he lost his job because of immigrants. Or I know a woman, you know, Sally, who she was killed by an illegal immigrant. Or, you know, look at this or this or this. It's never like, well, let's talk about the numbers. Let's talk about the data. You know, do Hispanics or immigrants in general commit as much crime as the native population? The answer is no. Do immigrants help the economy? The answer is unequivocally yes. No economist debates this. You know, maybe you can have some arguments about the marginal fiscal impact, and even that comes out to be either a wash or slightly negative. But you know, I digress. Like, all of these arguments become, when you're fighting for politics, when you don't really care about the argument itself, and you're just trying to push a political narrative, as most people are, your rhetoric usually resembles that of somebody trying to sell stories to people, which is the most effective way of pushing somebody in a political direction that you think is good. I have no desire to do this. I've never had a desire to do this. Maybe in the future I will, but right now I just don't care about this. I don't care about politics in the sense that I want to sell a political message to somebody. It's not the way that I personally function, and I understand that I'm somewhat unique there. I'm a little bit sociopathic, I guess, in the way that I approach these issues, and I'm okay accepting that I'll be a massive outlier there, but I just have no desire to dedicate a large amount of my time in trying to craft these bullshit narratives to send to somebody in order to bring them over to my position. To go back to the beginning, I'm only interested in telling you these are these are sound premises, and this is a valid way to put them together to generate a conclusion that makes sense. That's the only thing I have ever been concerned with. Maybe that changes in the future, but as of right now, as of in the immediate future for my political stuff, it's still the only thing I'm concerned with. Looking back on all the conversations, I try to take stock every now and then to say, like, well, what are successful debates that I've had so far? And when I think of success, I can only measure it against my goal, right? What is success except your ability to achieve a stated goal? And so if my goal is constructing sound and valid arguments that lead to good conclusions, honestly, I've only had like 2 or 3 good debates where I've really gotten to hash everything out. Ironically enough, my debate with Amos E., the guy who was in favor of removing the age of consent, that debate was incredibly hashed out. We went through a little bit of empirical data. We hardcore nailed out philosophical positions. I felt very good about the position that I was able to state in that conversation. And Amos seemed to be receptive to the arguments that I was making. You know, there were no ad hominems. There were no crazy personal attacks. I don't think he ever called me a midget, you know, any of that stupid stuff. And then my debate with Vegan Gains, I'd heard a lot of stuff about him, about how he's a crazy sociopath, crazy murderous dude. And I've heard some videos where he's pretty extreme. I think the one where he talks about going to the funeral of his grandfather or something, and how he didn't care because I don't know, I don't want to misstate it. But he was very intelligent, and the way that he constructed an argument was very intelligent. I loved these two conversations because I got to construct what I consider to be a sound and valid argument. My adversary had a sound and valid argument, and then we got to clash and reconcile the differences between these two things. This is what I enjoy doing. I love these types of discussions. Both people are receptive to the points raised by the other person. Both people seem to have some sort of understanding of empirical data. Both people seem to have some sort of understanding of how to put together rational, logical arguments. This is something that almost never happens in any of my conversations, and it's what I want to do the most. The two things I excel at, I think, are doing these types of arguments and making fun of people. The latter bred by decades of online experience, and then the former is something that I've kind of cultivated throughout my life, but especially harnessed, or I guess especially worked on over the past a year or two of my internet conversations. I've had so many conversations with people that I consider, and I'm going to risk sounding very arrogant here, but people that are so many levels of intelligence beneath the topics they're discussing that it hurts me to even reflect on these conversations. And we could name off a million examples. Dick Masterson comes on and says that I debate disingenuously, and I ask him for a single example. And over the course of an hour, the only one he can think of had to do with the American lawyer that Trump didn't want sitting on his Trump University case because the guy had parents that were from Mexico. And Dick couldn't think of any of the details of this case. He didn't know anything. Even Woody's gamertag, I don't remember his actual name, on the PKA podcast, they roasted him over how totally stupid he was in that conversation. No bullshit, saying that black people get arrested more by the cops because they drive around with guns hanging out of their pockets. Sargon of Akkad saying that if black people just get married, it will solve all of their problems. Not understanding cause and effect, not understanding correlation versus causation, not understanding that even if married black people are more successful than single black people, that doesn't mean that getting married will make you more successful, right? My argument with Ian, when I asked him to bring up any topic that he thought I was misinformed about, he chose a topic that he wrote a story on and was uttering stupid statement after stupid statement. It had to do with the California reducing the transmitting HIV to somebody as a misdemeanor instead of a felony. And Ian was uttering statements like, well, this means that now all the blood donated to the blood banks are going to have to be tested, like they weren't already doing that. And he chose the topic. He wrote an article on this. And there's a million more examples. I'm sure you guys can, Tonka, I don't have a Benz, I have a Mercedes. I don't know, man. There's a million of these topics where the people, in the gun debate, I'm sorry, I could do this forever. In the gun debate where the guy, I don't even remember, the bald-headed dude was trying to bring up the idea that, he brought up that after the gun ban in Australia, that homicides had remained stagnant, that there was no impact on crime. And I had to go through with him and I had to say, okay, well, we can't use absolute numbers here. And he unironically says to me, oh, so you want to make the per capita argument. And it's like, well, yeah, these are the only figures that matter. Why would you use an absolute value in crime and then juxtapose that with a rising population? Of course we're going to talk about per capita. I don't know if I used juxtaposed correctly there, but you know what I mean? I can't keep thinking about these things because I can think of a million. And these aren't, the problem I have here is it's not a disagreement over empirical data. It's not a disagreement. So for instance, with vegan gains, right, where I might disagree with a normative, with a philosophical claim that he makes. These are just disagreements in how do we interpret data? How do we understand, what is true? What do our numbers tell us? These are things that I would expect these people to learn in high school, and they either didn't learn it or they are intentionally ignoring it to push a narrative. And in either case, it's just not enjoyable to talk to these people. They just have no idea what they're talking about. On one hand, I feel like engaging with them is a waste of time. I know I've brought some people over from the middle, which is good, but these people are like the leading voices on YouTube, and it blows my mind that, I guess it doesn't blow my mind anymore though. Lauren Southern, when I argue with her about how, like, hey, going to Sweden and filming for 3 days doesn't give you a comprehensive look at the country. That's not how good data is collected. And she says, okay, well, what would you call it? It's like, well, these are just anecdotes. These are just one or two ops. Like, you have to be very rigorous in how you collect. And she says, well, the plural of anecdote is data. And it's like, no, that's not how that works at all. That's not true. That's the opposite of true. Man, it's just these types of conversations. They aren't very fulfilling for me. I enjoy it because of the second thing I brought up, that I do enjoy kind of like making fun of people and needling people. It's always been an enjoyable thing for me, probably just because of my background on the internet. But for reasons that we'll start to get into, I don't think I can really engage in this type of debate anymore. I think I actually can't do it. But before we get into that specifically, I guess I just want to reiterate that my goal for these debates was to just like do debates about, forming arguments and seeing who had the better argument. I don't want to do blood sports or this like internet MMA, I think is JF, whatever it calls it. I don't want to do this type of like scream matched stuff. In small doses, it's funny, but when that's all it is, I mean, I have more to offer than that. I'm worth more than that. I can assemble a decent amount of data and put together arguments and then deliver it in a pretty convincing fashion. This is stuff that I enjoy doing. I also enjoy walking into 1-on-5 calls and shitting on people, but that's not all I enjoy doing, and that's not all I want to be restricted to doing for the rest of my time on the internet. So yeah, now I enjoy doing that, but again, as we'll talk about in a little bit, I'm just not able to do this anymore, I don't think. So hopping into this next section, I do not think I can reasonably engage with these communities anymore, because there's like significant risk now to not only my livelihood, but potentially like my personal life. One of the things that I'd always said in the past, and one of the reasons I encourage people to debate these people, I'm slightly, I don't like to say this because it sounds really fucking edgy, but I think I'm slightly sociopathic in the way that I relate to people or don't relate to people, and the way that I deal with people. Now, this has some repercussions in my personal life. I don't really have any close friends. I don't really do relationships very well, and that's just a thing. But for my online stuff, it's been an amazing asset. I can deal with an unlimited amount of personal abuse, and it doesn't really bother me. After the JonTron debate, after the Twitch Plays Pokemon, if anybody remembers that, I've got tons of people that, will send me Reddit DMs or email me about wanting to rape and murder my kid, or about how much of a worthless fuck I am, or posts that go up on Kiwi Farms or Poll about how I'm a midget with a small dick that rapes children, or I don't know, just a ton of like really fucking horrible shit. And, because I think it's a combination of being very narcissistic and being somewhat sociopathic, I usually don't care. I don't know any of these people. I don't really care what their opinions are. I'm probably more accomplished and more successful than 99.999% of the people that make fun of me. I have no respect for the opinions of most of these people, and as a result of that, it doesn't bother me. And this has been an amazing asset for what I do online. Maybe the most important asset for what I do online. A lot of people don't realize this, but very public-facing people that work on YouTube or Twitch routinely go through these really big kind of emotional breakdowns because of dealing with online hatred. It's a very difficult thing to deal with. And if I had a more conventional kind of emotional structure, I would probably experience these things, even greater or at an even greater degree because of the political content that I am so involved in, and the increased amount of hatred that I kind of generate as a result of that. So I figure that understanding that I can deal with an extreme amount of emotional abuse, it kind of like perfectly equips me to allow me to kind of step forward into this arena and do these political debates. Because generally the biggest tools that they have is kind of berating people, calling people names, midget, whatever a million other stupid jokes that they can, hurl at me in order to, I don't even know why people do it, I guess. But, I figure that I'm equipped to do this. But the problem is that there are two huge issues now where this doesn't work for me anymore. One is the loss of revenue that I can deal with. And two is the, actual personal life threats. So we can go over the revenue related stuff first. All of my platforms now are under constant attack. So I had a number of tweets that were reported that I had to remove, and usually these are just like making fun of Tonka or something. I don't think my last Twitter account got banned, probably for good reason. I was really edgy on that account, but my recent one, I wasn't really that edgy on. My Omni Destiny one, I tried not to tell people to kill themselves or any like really offensive shit. The best that I could, I maybe made a few edgy tweets. The Burning Cross one was like pretty edgy, but for the most part, aside from calling people fucking idiots and whatnot, I don't think I was doing like TOS violation stuff. But my last one got completely shut down for a tweet that I still don't know what it was. I'm not sure what it was, but I know that there were a lot of people constantly reporting my stuff on the internet, right? Once my Twitter dropped, a ton of people started to post, oh, look, I'm the one that got him banned. A ton of people got reports back or got the message saying, oh, your report has gone through. We've taken action against this person for hateful, violent content or whatever. And there were just, there were a lot of people that seemed to be doing that. I remember there was one guy on Twitter that tweeted at me, look at Destiny, he said some shit and then he deleted his tweets, what a pussy, blah, blah, blah. And the funny thing was that my tweet wasn't deleted. The reason why he couldn't see it was because he was one of the people that had reported me, just dumb stuff like that. So my Twitter ended up getting permanently banned, which hurts my revenue. That's a bad thing. I need some sort of social media outreach. It's important for sponsor engagement. It's important to market my own stuff, right? You have a brand. If you don't exist on certain social media platforms, it's negative. And this is a very real, very harmful thing to me. My YouTube videos are also routinely mass reported. I have to be very careful what gets uploaded on YouTube. Oh, for the Twitter ban, that Twitter ban I think is actually permanent too. It extends across multiple accounts. Even if I try to create a new account, it seems to get banned instantly. Maybe in the future I can try to do something about that, but like you never deal with a person at Twitter, so I have no contacts at Twitter or anything to ever look to getting the account unbanned, so I'm pretty fucked in so far as that goes. The YouTube video stuff has been, I think Tonko is like reporting every video I've ever uploaded where I talk to him, saying that I'm like releasing personal information and stuff. My Twitch account is like mass reported now. I get anytime I do anything, even remotely TOS breaking, I've got somebody from Twitch that contacts me like, hey, just letting you know you got reported for this. It's not a big deal. Or, hey, you got reported for this and maybe this is something you should look out for. Like I get tons of reports on my Twitch channel now. A lot of the people at Kiwi Farms seem to try to coordinate that kind of like mass reporting thing. And then there's like these huge threads that go up on Poll every now and then. And I think a little bit on Kiwi Farms where people are posting like logs of my chat room where people are trying to dox my chatters. And I've had subreddit mods quit because they're worried that people are trying to dox my subreddit mods. And, people put together these elaborate stories about, apparently I've got a friend in chat who's a really successful person who's Jewish. And people say that, I'm bought off by the Jews, despite the fact that I have like one of the most anti-Israeli stances that I'm aware of on the internet. Not that I'm pro-Palestine per se, but goddamn, Israel gets their fucking hands dirty. Or that I'm controlled by, Muslims, even, because I've got a friend that lives in the, he's either from Qatar or the UAE, even though I'm consistently anti-Sunni. I'm very much taking anti-Sunni positions all the time. I really don't like ISIS. I really don't like Saudi Arabia's role in everything going on in the Middle East. Not to say that I'm pro the Ayatollah or pro Shia or anything, just I don't know. There's just been, those types of threats to my revenue where I have mods threatened to quit, where I'm getting chatters that are maybe being scared away, where my social media platform's under attack. These are losses that I don't want to suffer because I'm doing political content. Like I play video games on the internet. That's still a big part of what I do. And I can't risk everything in my life to be involved in political content. It's just not something that it's not worth it to me, right? I don't want to be out of a job in 1 year because I decided that I wanted to take this fight up. I'm not that noble. Remember, my goal is not to, sway people to a political side. I just want people to make good arguments. I don't care to lose. I'm not going to martyr myself for logic and reason. It's just not something I'm interested in doing. Those are the attacks on revenue. The personal attacks have gotten insane as well. The FBI, as of yesterday, has visited my house twice now. The first time they came is because somebody or multiple people were spam reporting them, saying that I was going to go and blow up a hospital, that I was planning on murdering people. And then as of yesterday, the FBI visited me asking me if I was holding any child pornography. The former is whatever, obviously I'm not going to murder anybody. You can do whatever. The latter one is a lot more scary, especially because I have a child. I don't know what type of, if the FBI gets a search warrant for your stuff, I could be deprived of my computer systems for, I think, over a month at a time if they take everything and they're doing an investigation. And then those types of, that's just a really scary thing, even if you're completely innocent. I have no idea what could come of that. Do they go on my computer and then they find like a illegally downloaded movie and now I'm fined like $1 million, or do they find a porn video on my computer and there's like an actress in the background who, well, actually she was 16 or something, I don't know. It's just a really scary shit. I've never had to think about like every single interaction I've had. Now I've got to like 50 million times guess myself on every person. Yeah, it's just really, really scary shit. These types of, and then people trying to dox my family now. Again, this goes back to that Kiwi pharmacist. I hate to mention them so much because I know they get a huge boner when I do it, but I figure I owe you guys an explanation for why I've not been as involved with the political stuff recently. The Kiwi pharmacist thread, people are literally trying to post information about my child's mom, and maybe my child, and making jokes like, well, if we can SWAT Destiny when his kid's around, what if the cops were to shoot his kid, This is not, it's not worth the risk for me. I can't do that. Maybe as a single person, if I didn't have a family, I would weigh this a little bit differently, but I can't engage in good faith in this kind of stuff. The risks are way too fucking high for me. So that's the duality there, that combined attack on my revenue plus the combined attack on my personal life makes these types of issues. I just can't confront these things, and I just can't do it, right? It's insane. As kind of a stepping stone to that, this is something that I'm going to rescind, something that I very commonly said before, all throughout my debate history. Everybody should engage with these communities. Everybody should want to debate the alt-right. Everybody should want to debate these ideas. Deep inside, philosophically, I still believe that, but I can't in good conscience tell people to do that anymore. I can't make that recommendation that you need to step up and you need to be ready to debate these guys about their race realism because what they're saying is wrong, and as long as the facts are on your side, you should be fine. I can't do that anymore. If I can't do it, and I am, again, at the risk of sounding arrogant, I'm the best equipped person I know to do this type of stuff. Nothing you say bothers me. I can take an infinite amount of abuse, and I can deal it back pretty well too. I mean, a lot of the people I debate are easy targets, but when the level of hatred steps up to this degree and I can't do it, there's no way that I could recommend anybody else to do it. I mean, maybe if you live on the fucking moon and you're single and like nothing can touch you, if you're like a multi-billionaire, I guess. But yeah, I totally have to walk back that assertion that everybody should be willing to debate these people. One of the big problems that kind of relates to this is, responsibility of fan bases. I'm very big in being responsible for your fan base, and I have been responsible for my fan base. If I see my fan base engaging in something, whether it's transphobic behavior, I now have a decent-sized trans community in my community, whether it's homophobic behavior, racist behavior, anything like that, I'm pretty aggressive in curbing that type of shit. Because I very much believe that you are responsible for your fan base. Your fan base is a mirror. You look into it and it gazes back at you. For some people, I guess this is the abyss. But so if my fan base is engaged in shit that I wouldn't personally do, this thing that people on the right do, where they're just like, well, it's my fan base, I can't do anything about it. I can't control them. You can't hold me responsible for that. I absolutely categorically reject that notion. But this leaves me at a disadvantage because while they assume no responsibility for their fan base, I am constantly under attack on all of my platforms, and they don't feel that same pressure, not from my fan base. I am relentless when it comes to my fan base not assaulting other people. I'm very big on that. Never encouraged anybody to report anybody, never encouraged anybody to report anybody's Patreons or YouTube videos or to harass anybody or whatever. I was very, very, very big on that. Yeah, I was. So I can't in good conscience recommend anybody engage with these people anymore. So I'll stop doing that. I'm probably going to stop doing that. And then this moves on to our next point, and having to do with what I was just talking about. And this has to do with deplatforming. In the past, I was very much a huge supporter of the marketplace of ideas. Every idea should see the light of the sun, and in the light of the sun, we will destroy bad ideas with relentless logic. Okay, we will take bad ideas. Immigration is bad for the United States. Okay, well, let's look at the empirical data on crime. Let's look at the empirical economic data. Let's look at the empirical data, presented by all these people. And no. This is stuff that people just aren't interested in doing, at least the people that I debate against on the right, the very popular voices on YouTube, the Steven Crowders, the Sargon Abakads, the Ben Shapiros, the Stefan Molyneux. These are people that aren't interested in engaging in fact-based debate. And then going a level down into the sewers, the Andy Warskis and the JFs, the Blair Whites, the roaming millennials, the Lauren Southerns, these cancerous, toxic voices on YouTube that constantly missource, misquote, misinterpret, invent stories, right? You remember the video that Blair White made up where she walked to some random place and got assaulted by Trump haters or whatever? That whole video was arguably staged. There's a good argument for it. She won't release the original footage. She lied even about the premise of the video, that they were going to go walk to a random place and they happened to show up at a literal anti-Trump rally, making it sound like they were just randomly wandering around. Like, these are, these people are insane. Jesus. We were talking about my stance on deplatforming. Basically, and I know that I'm going to irritate probably a lot of my core fan base with this, because this is one of the most attractive things to me. I used to be very aggressively against deplatforming these people, that if we can show people that, these ideas are bad, then bad in a logical way, then people will abandon these ideas. My new stance on deplatforming is I think that people that lie or engage in reckless dishonesty, I think should be aggressively deplatformed. And this is the new stance that I have taken with my community. So when Blair White is posting article headlines and then sniping it with her stupid commentary that shows that she didn't even read the article, when Sargon of Akkad is quoting news sources or is quoting data that he either doesn't understand, or he's misquoting, or he's doing it in an entirely reckless manner that shows that he has no understanding what he's talking about, right? I have switched my position now such that I think these people should be deplatformed. From a moral sense, I would consider it a moral wrong to contribute to the public discourse if you are engaging in reckless dishonesty or willful dishonesty. Now, I could make a whole 2-hour discussion on this in and of itself with people. I know your gut reaction is always to say, well, Destiny, how do you judge this? Innocent people are going to be deplatformed. And that could be true. However, this is sort of a kind of a nirvana fallacy where, like, I don't know if I could ever enact something like this. And let me be clear, I'm not talking about like legislation should exist to deplatform these people. What I'm saying specifically is that if my fan base wants to mass report somebody that's engaging in hateful behavior or engaging in this kind of like reckless dishonesty, or if Twitter or YouTube wants to deplatform these people, I am now in support of it. I'm not going to sit there and give people targets to attack, but if my fan base finds some tweets and shit and they want to report them, then instead of me, typically in the past, what I would say is, okay, guys, like, this isn't cool. We don't want to remove anybody's voice. Fuck that. I totally walk that back now. And now if people see stuff that they think is reportable, not only do I think you should report it, you should post it to your friends and report it too. If you think that it's violating the terms of service on any platform, be it YouTube, be it Twitter, be it Patreon. So going back to what I was saying earlier, I know a lot of people say like, oh, Destiny, how do you enforce this perfectly? I don't know how you enforce it perfectly, but what we have right now is not working. And I'm not going to let somebody nirvana fallacy me out of taking this position, that if I can't present to you a 100% perfect way to do it, that I have to live in the horrible reality that exists right now, that where people literally just blatantly make up lies and fiction across social media and then use that to argue. You don't have to agree with my stance on deplatforming. That's fine. These are all just personal evolutions I've had over the past several months. These are the deplatforming stances and the unwillingness to recommend other people engage with the opposition. These are pretty radical departures from my previous stances. I understand that. I hope that I've communicated the gravity of what I have personally faced to kind of justify my departure from those positions. If I haven't, or if I've, I'm sure there'll be people arguing about it in the comments. my whole view of people in general has changed for the worse over the past like year. I don't know if I'm just engaging selectively with bad people, but like I say, their subscriber numbers, Sargon approaching 1 million subs, that Steven Crowder guy, does he have like 500,000 subs? Like Lauren Southern being more and more popular, like I don't know. That's my stance on deplatforming, I guess. Moving on to I guess we can tie this back into the Twitter thing. This is an issue that I had a long time ago. I don't know if anybody remembers me saying this. A long time ago, I used to believe that we should be able to say whatever words we wanted to. If I want to call somebody a faggot, I should be able to do that, and it shouldn't bother gay people. Well, a lot of people, when I would make these claims, a lot of people would agree with me, and I'd feel good, and they'd feel good, and I'm a pretty good speaker, and I put these arguments out there, and they sound very powerful, and everybody's like really excited to be rallying behind me on that. And one of the things that I've realized is that people don't actually agree with those arguments. They only ever agreed with them because they were convenient to them. Like, people like saying the word faggot, so if I give you a reason to do it, you'll sit there and jump up behind me and support my reason for doing it. But if somebody wants to make a joke about, say, men or white people or gamers, people get insanely fucking irritated. Jimmy Kimmel did a few skits on his YouTube where, it was making fun of people that watch video game streams. And, I watched the skits and it wasn't a horrible skit. It wasn't the funniest skit, but, it was okay. Gamers are so fucking mad about that. These are like some of the most downvoted videos on all of fucking YouTube. It's insane. And I thought this was the same group of people that were saying, hey, we should be able to take a joke about anything. We should be able to laugh at ourselves, which are things that I agree with. But it turns out they don't actually agree with these things. They just said it because it was convenient for them, Another thing that I've said constantly is I don't know if we necessarily need a lot more black or minority figures, for instance, like women, black people, whatever. I don't think we need more minority figures represented in media because I don't think that should be a really important thing to you. Whether or not the main character is black or white or male or female, that shouldn't matter. I can identify with anybody. I have a lot of people that agree with me when I say that, but they don't actually agree with me. They just like the status quo, and my message was a way to maintain that status quo. So when I went to Korea, or if I go to Germany or any other place, or when I was in Taiwan, I don't mind being surrounded by a lot of people that look different than me, that speak different languages than me. That's totally fine for me. When I'm watching movies like Kill Bill or Alien or The Black Panther or any of these movies like this, I don't mind seeing all black people or the new Ghostbusters or all women on the screen. It's fine. I don't care. But the thing is that so many people that agreed with my messaging before, as soon as I remember this thread went up on Reddit, the third most upvoted comment, it was the new FIFA game. The main character that you play with is black. And the third most upvoted comment on that thread was, as a white person, how the fuck am I supposed to feel like I'm role playing when the lead character is black? And it's like, well, hold on. I thought we were telling this to black people and women. I thought we were saying this the whole time, that it shouldn't matter. So it sounds like you didn't actually agree with any of those arguments. They were just bullshit arguments that you were putting out to maintain the status quo. That makes me not want to make those arguments anymore because I don't feel like the people that agree with me honestly agree with me. Let me bring this full circle. I bring this up because I now realize, painfully so, that the freedom of speech argument is the exact same. The right, earlier I talked about how emotion is the only way to win arguments now, right? And we've seen this, the whole Cambridge Analytica, all of this shit, just reinforces the idea that you use emotion to get to people, as much as people hate to admit it. But the right is very much a feels over reals kind of thing. Immigrants are bad because they're brown and scary. Tariffs are good because I like American industry. Just all these dumb... there's a million positions that I could criticize, but I won't get into all right now. Just all these dumb positions that can only be justified in a narrative or emotional sense. There is no empirical backing to any of these. But the freedom of speech thing is something that the right always said that they had over the left, like the facts over feels thing. The facts over feels is bullshit, right? But the freedom of speech thing is bullshit too. I was very big on freedom of speech, and I honestly was one of the biggest freedom of speech people that I knew on the left or the center or whatever, such that if you're a fan of mine and you remember following my shit, you should remember when Sargon's Twitter account got banned, I tweeted that I didn't think that was a good thing. I thought that it's a bad thing that Sargon is banned from Twitter. We want our opposition to be very vocal. We want to see their, ideas, publicly so that we can dress them down. And I tweeted that. I remember Sargon himself tweeted back at me that, or I think on his new Twitter, something that he appreciated my support. When JonTron lost his job, or lost that speaking gig, it was a really minor speaking role in some Banjo-Kazooie clone, and the game ended up not being that good. But when he got removed from that position, I tweeted out that I thought it was the wrong approach. Even after our conversation, I said that if we want to change people's ideas, we should welcome them with open arms and show them how ridiculous their ideas are, not exclude them from everything we do in order to further radicalize them. I think that was a bad idea, and I tweeted that publicly. And when Richard Spencer got punched in the street, I'm very much a no political violence person, or was a no political violence person. And I genuinely believe that. And I tweeted that I don't think that anybody on the left should be celebrating him getting punched. I mean, you guys call everybody Nazis. Fuck, I've been called a Nazi. I don't want to get punched in the street. And every time I'd make these tweets, everybody on the right would tweet at me, not everybody, but a lot of people on the right would tweet in agreement like, hey, it's really cool that you say this. It's really awesome that at least, even though you're on the left and we disagree with you, at least you stand for free speech, But then I noticed the hypocrisy. Anytime, there were controversial, there were ContraPoints videos that were taken down from YouTube because of people spam reporting. I think Sean and Jen or H-Bomber Guy or other random people have lost videos due to spam reporting. Obviously, my stuff has been damaged due to spam reporting. When my Twitter got unbanned, I made a post on my subreddit where I was just curious, like, who are all of the people celebrating my ban? Because I saw so many people, Count Dankula, Ian Chung, Nick Fuentes, all of these people that, love freedom of speech. All of these people came out of the woodwork to celebrate, yes, Destiny got banned on Twitter. Destiny's finally gone. And it's like, oh, I guess we never really supported freedom of speech then. I guess that was just kind of like a big meme. It's really whatever you say to maintain the status quo. And this kind of reinforces past messages from people like ContraPoints who say the only reason these people value freedom of speech is because right now it's the only way they can get out their insanely offensive messaging. And that as soon as they're in charge, freedom of speech would be the very first thing that goes, and I kind of believe that. That's probably true, So, I don't know. I believed in freedom of speech a lot, but seeing that nobody else does, and the opposition will never take responsibility for their fan bases, and this isn't an implicit thing, this is explicitly, I've had conversations with these people where they say, well, I'm not responsible for what my fans do, I can't, Andy Wersk gets a donation from $100, or for $100 from some guy named like literally a Nazi or something, and says to him Nazi, and he's like, well, I can't control my fans, I can't do it. It's like, okay, well, fuck, like I can't sit here and get my ass whipped by, a million people spam reporting my shit. Like, it's not an even playing field, and then you take no responsibility for any of it. Like, yeah, so I don't know. I'm pretty big on that deplatforming train now. I remember after I got banned, I told my community, I guess this is evidence of how well behaved we were, because after I got banned, I told my community, fuck it, report whatever the fuck you want, I don't care now, and a whole bunch of bans on Twitter started to get banned. I think that audacious Canadian guy just recently got banned. I think there's so many accounts that have gotten banned, and it's just like, I guess if this is the way that we have to do it, and I guess it's the way that we'll do it. For political stuff going forward, I kind of want to do, I've wanted to do the podcast thing for a while, and I've thought about how I want to do it, and I'm getting closer to like what I want to do. I think, like, I've had an idea for the gun control thing where I think what I might do is I'll post like a thread on my subreddit, and I'll say, what do you want to know about guns and gun violence in the United States? And basically a bunch of people would post questions. I would take like all of the questions or the most interesting or most questions from that. And then I would spend maybe a week or so doing a lot of data digging, like, well, is the United States the most violent country when it comes to gun homicides? Is it per capita? Is it per gun? Is it per gun owner? Is it per household owner? Is it really just black people causing all the violence? Are white people in the United States more violent as well? Is it like collecting all of this data and then kind of doing an hour-long podcast where I just kind of talk about or rather address all of the questions being asked? That sounds like an interesting format that I could work with. I'm sad that I lose the ability to debate somebody about it, but this could be like a good starting ground where I do like an hour or two podcast going through all of the empirical data, listing my sources. I would obviously release an outline with every single one of these podcasts for people to dig through if they disagree with things, or to use as ammunition in their own debates. And, the whole podcast would kind of be driven based on what questions are being asked in my subreddit. This is kind of the idea that I've been gestating, or has been gestating in my mind over the past probably month or two, and I'm probably going to make that thread on my subreddit pretty soon. And then yeah, I mean, I guess that's what I'm looking at right now. The debates were fun, but like at this point, I have like a massive blacklist of people that I can never talk to again. I will never talk to the Count Dankula guy, the Ian Chung guy, Dick Masterson, no bullshit, Tonka Saw, JF, Andy White. Like, these are people that I will never, ever, I just can't talk to them because their fan bases are militant, are insane. And then the people themselves will only engage in ad hominem, which doesn't bother me as much, but then when their fan base takes it, amplifies it, and then turns it into ways to damage my revenue or to attack my personal life, it's just not worth it. And I feel like if I were to dive into this like debate related stuff again, that like it would turn into I don't know, I would end up blacklisting so many people. And once you start blacklisting people, it's hard. You start to lose all credibility, like if people are saying, I'll debate anyone on this topic. Well, wait, actually, I won't debate you, because I think you guys are fucking idiots. Like, I don't think that's a good way. I don't think that's a good way to, I don't think that's a good way to establish credibility in kind of like these debate communities. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's kind of all my thoughts, kind of summarized about this, kind of catching everybody up on everything. I'm working on a Facebook page. I'll probably start using that as my social media outreach, assuming anybody's left on Facebook after this, mass departure. No, I'm just kidding. People aren't going to abandon Facebook. And then maybe I'll be more active there as my form of social media. I'll probably keep it centered on political stuff. There won't be as much gaming stuff mixed in there. We'll see. And then, yeah. That's just kind of an update on everything going forward. I kind of went quiet on the political stuff. I haven't done much about it. I haven't talked much about it. It's really hard to talk about these issues because anytime you mention that an opposition tactic is working, as far as silencing the opposition goes, they're more likely to engage in it or feel empowered doing it. Like, oh shit, like we just have to spam call the FBI on everybody now and we can get people to stop doing this, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I don't really know how else to address it than, kind of making this little audio recording and talking to you guys. Anyway, I love you all very much. Thanks for supporting me, and I will see you guys in the future going forward. We'll still do political stuff in some form. We just have to figure out a good way to do it. I'll see you guys later. Have fun.